Welcome to our afternoon debrief for day 5. Welcome to our afternoon debrief for day 4 of SICSS-Howard Mathematica. So what we're going to do is spend some time learning about what you learned today. So the questions on the table for each of our teams, the teams being Marcia P. Johnson, James Baldwin, Audrey Lord, Rashad Robinson, Roxanne Gay, and Alvin Ailey. The questions we're going to be reviewing from each team are: how close were the estimates for this activity to the estimates from Pew? What do you think might be causing some of these differences? How could you test the speculation? What issues have you noticed while creating a survey in Google Form? Or you also could be using Qualtrics, or we left that open. I think most of you probably use Google Forms. Did you randomize the order of the questions? If not, should you have done that? You probably noticed that Pew did randomize the order in each of their surveys, or maybe you did notice that. How important is it to open source data that you have collected with other research? How important is it to make your data open source when you've collected it with other researchers? What are the things we should do or keep in mind when doing open source data? And finally, does this activity change how you think about your own research or the project you might want to do in week 2? So these are the questions on the table, and what we'll do is cede time to each of the teams to go ahead and share their thoughts. So we have about 2 minutes a team, but we will do our debrief after this. So if we run into that a little bit, I'm happy to shorten our debrief for the day. So let's make sure we give each of the teams a chance to go ahead and share their experience. So to make things a little bit easier, what we're going to do is we're going to make everyone a co-host so you can spotlight yourself. So that, because Amanda and I are just 2 people today for this work. So if someone could please raise your hand and volunteer your group to start us off, that would be great. So Amanda and I are making our way slowly through making everyone co-host, so that they are able to spotlight themselves when that happens. So which team? I see a hand up. Let's see, which team is that? Thank you, Janera. Go ahead and spotlight yourself as well as your team, and we will jump in. So we're slowly making everyone co-host. If I've made you a co-host, please help making other people co-hosts. That would be very helpful. Just right click on them and type and click make co-host. Great. So I'm going to remove my spotlight and go ahead. And this, please tell us which team you are.
So we are James Baldwin. We kind of came up with a little bit of a different order for checking in, so I hope that's okay. And then if we want us to go back to answer some of the other questions, then that's fine. So I just wanted to comment a little bit about how we approach this learning experience. So Todd originally suggested that whoever had the least experience with R should share their screen. And so I think we did a really good job of making sure that everyone was learning how to do the exercise. And then Todd, I feel like, was kind of one of our leaders in that he got pretty much almost to the end. So we got both the experience and to see kind of like the big picture. And then in terms of the survey, I will say that that was an interesting experience. I feel like we worked together well in terms of deciding what was the big picture. We played around with different things. We played around with some of the questions to see if participants were paying attention. We didn't randomize things. I think we could have, but we wanted to make sure that those questions to catch whether or not our respondents were answering was really important. And so I don't want to take up all the time. I could say more, but Elaine is next.
Yeah, the Google's format survey is definitely a different experience from Quadrats, and we didn't randomize our question. I know that Quadrats has a function where you can randomize within each block, but with Google, I haven't found out how do you do that with each block. So we didn't randomize. Ideally, we would like to randomize questions within each block. And also the selection choices in the demographic questions, like political orientation, you will want to randomize different parties. And then we went into the exercise comparing MTurk results with Pew. And first we did follow the tutorial, and with the unweighted, I can share my screen. Yeah. Can everybody share? We load the data and follow the tutorial and define when the estimate means were not weighted, depending on the question type, whether it's media preference or priority policy issues. The two data doesn't converge super well. There are some disparities, and same when we did the box plot. And I will hand it to talk about what we then did was the post stratification.
Okay, so I will quickly talk through our approach to the post stratification. So in the interest of time, we kind of jumped to 3.1, which was about trying to 3.1, trying to use all the groups, so using sex, region, age, group, and race. And we struggled a bit with that. We did make it through calculating the group weights from the census, getting the group population weighted data from Mechanical Turk, and then joining the two. And so we got the Mechanical Turk group means. One thing I noticed here is that the means were often 1, 0, or 0.5, or some other division of like 2 or of 4. And so if you don't have that much data, I was wondering, does it make sense to do post stratification by all of these different cells? Like once you do all of these 160 cells and we only have 800 observations or 700 observations, then are we like splitting the data up too much? And then I tried and failed, but we'll continue to play around with getting the weighted means because they're definitely too small. But this was still a good learning experience. I had never done or heard of post stratification prior to preparing for this institute, so I will definitely look more into that as I do work with surveys in my research. Thanks, and thank you, team.
Now introducing Team Roxanne Gay. Please go ahead and take over.
Great. I don't know how to spell that myself. Here we go. Thank you. So yeah, I think, did a multifaceted approach to this. We, wait, sorry, wrong team. Looking for Regina.
I'm here. I'm spotlighted as well.
Okay, cool. Great. So yeah, we also had a team member, Troy, who had to leave for another commitment. So we kind of divided and conquered a little bit. Troy worked ahead and got, I think, pretty far in it. He unfortunately can't talk about it. And I took the perspective of I'm just going to try and work through as much of this as possible, with not drawing on sort of the template as much and just thinking like how would I approach this coming into this blind with just a sense of what to do for the most part, or as close to that as we could. I think it was a pretty interesting exercise. And one of the first conversations we had as a group was, there's all these different cells that we could use, and we, rather than going with the exact sort of ways to split cells that they, chose in the exercise, we said, if we just were trying to decide this ourselves. And so we figured out, we just tried to estimate how big would each cell be if we tried different combinations of demographic things to split on, and sort of came to the conclusion that trying to do more than 2, and depending on which 2 might even be too many, you end up with very small cells that are sometimes hard to interpret. And so we ran with using a couple of the different, 2 of the different demographics, and we actually chose different ones. So I think worked on different ones than Troy did, for example, when he was working ahead, and followed through the example. We made it pretty far, but not all the way quite to the end. And I thought it was pretty interesting to find that it seemed like there was a bigger difference in the estimates for the social media type questions. There were huge differences in the estimates of whether people use Twitter and Reddit and things like that. Less so for the beliefs or sort of the preferences about different, policy type questions, which I think maybe makes some sense given that MTurk is people who are very much online, and might be a different sort of sample than Pew is able to get, even if their demographics look the same, and maybe there's some variables that we're not seeing here that could be really relevant for why that's different. We spent some time talking about the survey stuff too, but maybe I'll stop and let my partner say stuff.
Yeah, so for the survey, we were thinking we wanted to do something a bit different from the public opinions that were there. We wanted to play around with some of our research interests. So we added some, can I share my screen during this? Okay, let me choose the screen. Okay, oh yeah, I have a lot of stuff on the screen. Okay. Okay, so we decided to take a mix of Troy's interest and my interest. So Troy had some questions about day-to-day life experiences of discrimination, and we also had some questions. We included we had this attention check questions in there, but we also had some questions about empathy. So we used the IRI scale. So your perspective taking, what you, how you feel different situations, whether you feel connected to characters in books, those sorts of things, to kind of encapsulate different types of empathy that we can think of. So we wanted to see if we do send this out to a bigger group, we wanted to see if the discrimination items correlated with the empathy items. So are you more or less empathetic when you regularly experience discrimination? So those are yeah, and also we had the background questions as well. One of the things that we were thinking about changing this other question, but we're not quite sure exactly how to do that on Google Forms. It's easier on Qualtrics. I'm not sure exactly the way it would work, but to have people insert their what they identify with that's not listed on here. So it's not just the other box. And I think for future analysis, you can have that whatever else they write as a category in itself instead of just other, because that could leaves too much room for interpretation. Yeah, and same for the gender item as well.
Thank you, Team Roxanne Gay. I don't see a hand, so I'm going to volunteer. I'll go with Rashad Robinson. I took my very first international trip with Rashad. We've known each other since high school, so I will go with Team Rashad. So let's see, Kimberly, Ibuka, Jeremy, and Ebony. Please go ahead and turn on your cameras and take over. There we go. Thank you much.
I don't know what everybody else is at, but that's all right.
I'm right here.
All right, there we go.
We need everybody. Very.
Yay, team. Get it.
Yeah. So our process, just kind of first, we spent a good amount of time trying to figure out like our survey using the Google form. A lot of our group actually is very familiar with using Qualtrics. So using Google form, we saw some of the different limitations, but some specific questions that we found ourselves spending a lot of time on was surrounding gender and then also racial groups. And we actually came to like the conclusion that like this is like it's really tough to try to be as inclusive as possible in surveys, and just thinking about that. And then also some of the different problems and issues that could come up with like doing machine learning with that, and like how can they be inclusive? Our machine learning techniques are actually pretty inclusive with surveys. Then we were able to kind of transition a little bit over to the coding piece of it all with R and with the survey, with the data, and trying to compare it to the Pew Research methods. We were actually able to get some assistance from Hanzu, who actually came and joined us in our group. But we're still trying to figure out a little bit more with R a little bit, and trying to still troubleshoot a little bit more. Does anyone else kind of want to jump in?
Thanks, Jeremy. What I'd like to add a little bit more about our discussion regarding the questionnaire, I think that it provided us, we experienced a few challenges identifying ways to be inclusive with the race question, and then also with regard to gender. And what we did find, we found out that Google Forms wasn't the best format for us to be able to be inclusive as we'd like to be, as some of us are race scholars. So we wanted to be incredibly inclusive, and we did not have the opportunity to do so within Google Forms. So we had to develop alternate like 7A, 7B questions to provide a space to create inclusivity. And I think that speaks to our ideology as like data scientists and researchers, and also just wanting to engage in a discussion about being more inclusive on race and gender questions, because we kind of went back and forth about on the gender question, do we just want to have two boxes that folks click, male or female? And then we're like, no, we want to be inclusive. Do we try to outline all, I think, 54 genders, or do we provide a space where folks check off others, please specify? And we wanted to go that route, but there wasn't an option on Google Forms, so we had to create an alternate question. So I think that speaks to a lot of the work that needs to happen in the field so that we can be inclusive. But I know many of us had experience working with Qualtrics, and we could do some of those more sophisticated functions, but that's also, it speaks to having access to resources. If you don't have money for Qualtrics, then you can't use those sophisticated mechanisms. So we were using Google Forms. So I just kind of wanted to lift that up. And then also the piece regarding R. So for myself, just running into issues, trying to run various functions. So we troubleshot some of that, but I think as a group, we're working together on that. And if anyone else wants to like speak to that, I don't want to speak totally.
One thing I want to add to that, speaking back to the inclusivity, for the R thing, I was already troubleshooting R. Me and R apparently don't get along. R's been giving me problems since yesterday, but I don't know if it's because like I still need to enable certain packages on my R, or because that was the issue yesterday, or if it was that, you know, in copy and pasting something, the indentation wasn't right or something like that. Like I have to sit with it for a minute. But in speaking of inclusivity in the survey, I also noticed that in the the states question, Puerto Rico was listed, but none of the other territories were listed. So I actually spent quite a bit of time going through and figuring out which one of the territories actually had people on it, which Jarvis Island does not have people on it, but Virgin Islands do, North Mariana Islands do. And so like, I was like, well, listen, I understand Puerto Rico is right here, but at the same time, if we're going to list one of these territories, then we're definitely listing US Virgin Islands as well as all of the other territories where people live, including Guam, American Samoa, and all these other folks that we've got here. So that's something else.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's it for our group. It was really great time working together with the group. I think we pretty much spent 3/4 of the time talking about the survey development. And really, it's really set me thinking of things to look into my career further on when it comes to career, like race, gender classification, and things to look into and assist. So that's it for him.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wanted to let you all know that Hansi stayed after to come talk to me, and so did Nancy. And they are working on some code for those of you who had some difficulty with R. And also there was some pretty heavy survey questions that they're working on. So they're going to send us information tonight that we will share with you. And you can expect to see more TAs tomorrow, Stata, R, and also Python. I also want to give you a heads up that when you all make decisions about your projects, all of these people will be available by email next week. So when you decide that you need to build an interactive dashboard or, a simple histogram or everything in between, there will be support for that. So start thinking about what you want to do, and we'll have folks to help make that happen. So I believe our next team is, did I say Audrey Lord in the chat box? I think that's what I said. If I didn't, I just changed my mind. So Audrey Lord, come on up.
I don't know how to spotlight myself.
We can help you. We got you, Yandu. Okay, so there you go. So spotlighted Yandu to start.
And there's a few other people.
Tell us who and we will help.
Oh yes, Abiadon and Erica.
There we go. I got, all right, I'm adding Erica. There we go. Okay, anybody else?
Richmond, but I don't know if he is back. He stepped out for a second.
Yes, Richmond is here. We cannot spotlight people unless their cameras are on. Something for y'all to know. So if you'd like to be spotlighted, please turn on your camera. All right, go ahead, jump on in.
Okay, so in the morning, we had, I guess, very different conversations from what people were talking about. In the morning, we were kind of just trying to figure out the survey and make sense of it and the questions. The social media use question, we ended up having conversations about whether the yes/no question was sufficient or as informative as it could be. So we talked about whether there should be a question about whether people have an account on those sites and then how frequently they use those sites, to try to get at the type of users. So people that just go on YouTube versus they actually have an account on YouTube and such. In terms of the data analysis, I guess somebody else could speak to that. We were working through R and a lot of for most of the afternoon.
Yeah, so in the afternoon, we tried to do the second section exercise, and I would say we had trouble doing the code. I would say basically our team is made up of like 75% of us are new to her. So, but we had to like do some teamwork to get us through. So we found that there were some lines of code that were missing in the scripts, but we were able to troubleshoot on how to get those code and run those pads. And we successfully did the estimates. I think from the first thing that presented, we replicated the two different graphs they did. And I think that was where we got stuck and time went by. But yeah, we learned a lot working together as a team and yeah, troubleshooting stuff by ourselves.
Erica, would you like to share some thoughts? Oh, great. There you
Sorry,
are.
I was, yeah. I mean, I just like to add, I had to step out for a minute for the afternoon session, but I think we were able to work together and try out different things or just continue to throw out ideas in codes or trying to just troubleshoot together. And yeah, I appreciated someone else bringing up just like the idea of sharing what this code, what some of the different approaches could have been to reach what we needed to, just because yeah, I think it was taking us longer than we anticipated.
Thank you all. Let's continue on with Team Marsha P. Johnson. Thank you all for giving us just a little bit more time. Today, we make sure we fit in all of our teams. What I have to say will only take about 2 minutes. So great. So we are, let's see, Team Marsha P. Johnson. So that would be Yesh, Maxine, Regis, and Meredith. Let's start getting people spotlighted. Thank you all for helping.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I know Regis is here and wanted to be included. There he is. Okay. Hi. I can start. So surveys are totally new to me. I've never used them in research, and I've just only recently started using Google Forms to get feedback from my students since we started the Summer Institute. So thank you for that. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about surveys, and we were really lucky to have Meredith in our group who uses them quite a bit. And so we talked about some of the logistics of running a survey. So before even kind of diving into the questions, just how to think about surveys. And then we also, like some of the other groups, talked about how to make questions more inclusive, and how to ask questions about race and ask questions about gender. And was another thing that came up with the survey. We were very interested in adding a question about paid versions of social media. So things like Patreon or a paid version of YouTube. And we'd be interested in looking at users who use a free version versus a paid version of social media.
I can share. We also spent a good amount of time trying to figure out how the code works. And something that we really appreciated through this process was kind of like not thinking about one person doing it and the others just listening, but like everyone being on the same page every 10 minutes. And also Todd, Maxine did the same thing with us. She made us all share a screen and we all took turns. And I think that was a really inclusive learning environment, which I think I really appreciated in our group. And also, we also thought about like cognitive ability to fill out forms and fatigue of filling out forms and things like that, which I personally never had to think about. And it was a big learning moment for me. And we were able to successfully use, I think, 50% of the code, which is a big learning point.
Yeah, I think Maxine and Yash definitely said most of what I was going to say. We definitely going through the code kind of line by line and just trying to understand with one another, what particular things mean, because, it was great to be able to kind of copy and paste all that in and then run it, but then going back through it and trying to, and talking with one another about, okay, what does this do? And why is this here? And why is that? And trying to understand these graphs together was a good learning experience. It's kind of, I have to do that more. I kind of wish I had started doing it earlier, to be honest.
One fun story, Nanette, for the group is, we really understood what we were doing after we got the final graph and tried to understand what we just did after like half the day is over.
I love it. This is a metaphor for computational social science. This is beautiful. All right, so our last group, rounding it out with Alvin Ailey. If you have not had the chance to see the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater perform live, it is a gift. I would encourage you to check them out if they come to your city. Team Alvin Ailey, go ahead and spotlight yourself and we will help.
Can I get some assistance? My computer died on me like right before our group went, so I had to force restart some on my phone.
There we go. All right, sorry. So we spent a lot of time on, we're missing, oh, there we go. And where is
Benjamin? If you were here, in order to spotlight you, we have to have your camera on. And that's okay. You may not want to, that's okay.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to, I have like this little thing that covers my camera. Sorry.
All right, so we actually spent a lot of time on the survey portion, as did other groups. We were really interested in the concept of inclusivity as well, and found similar challenges as a lot of the other groups had already mentioned, including the categories of gender and race. And one of the things was we wanted to not have an other in terms of like literally othering folks. So that was a challenge for us early on, but we spent a lot of time focusing on the wording of the questions and the responses. Google Forms was also a new format for us. Most of us were more familiar with Qualtrics, so it was a learning experience. We actually didn't find out until a bit later that we could have used Qualtrics, but it's okay. We learned really well together. We didn't have a lot of time in terms of analyzing up until the very end, but we did spend some really quality time in R. Thanks so much to Marissa, who really broke down code for us. She shared her screen, and rather than sort of the copy paste method, it was more of like a step-by-step, this is what this one does, this is what this does. So it was really helpful for us as a group sort of working together. We had a lot of fun. We actually got opportunity to get to know one another a bit and have some chats as well, which was really, really great. I don't know if anyone else would like to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a few quick things. Adding on to what Nicole said, we did spend a lot of time with the survey, which I think was a good learning experience because we were very critical. So one of the other things we were critical of was like the priority ones, where we were not a fan of the wording that Pew uses for their survey data collection. So we actually approached a similar kind of results, but approached it by wording it a lot differently. So more so we allow participants to select from a list and rank their priority, as opposed to asking them specifically what's your top priority for the president and Congress, which is very conflated and also priming and leading. So we were critical in that sense. And then we were also, when we got to the R stuff, we're also really taking our time to see, like, is this actually the right analysis? So one of the things that like we noticed was that the data were binary, meaning that there was a yes or no, but means are typically not used for binary. So our first step was like, well, why are we calculating means for binary data, and just making sure this would be the right approach. So I think one thing that we did a really good job at is really conversing and being critical of what we were looking at, and really putting on our research caps as opposed to just kind of like, I guess, going along with everything. So I think that was really what made this a really interesting and really holistic and really great. I really enjoyed our group today learning experience.
Thank you all. That is our final group. So thank you all for sticking with us right now as to make sure all the groups got to participate. We're going to adjust things a little bit here. There we go. Thank you. And I'll do a quick closing. So again, thank you for your patience with us today. We were one woman and then two women down in this endeavor on our event team. And SICSS Umbrella also moved the ball a bit today, maybe deflated it, blew it back up, hit it for a little bit. So we were working on the fly, so I appreciate your patience with us. I would like to close our day by encouraging you to think of today as a metaphor for computational social science. So sometimes the rules and the approach are clear, but often they change as you go, and you're building the bridge as you walk across it. You may head into things knowing everything, you may know nothing, you may think you know something and then you don't. Your partner in this work may know something, but they may need to leave early or be in a different time zone or have a different training, and you're trying to translate that as you move. I would encourage you, when you do this work, to look to the experts. Sometimes that's on Stack Exchange, sometimes that's on Google, sometimes it's right in an office hour. In our case, it's here on Zoom, but maybe it's wandering over the computer science department or data science department, or talking to the resident statistician or cousin or friend, or this work requires a village. None of us will ever know all of it. So learning to work in community like we are today is so important. All right. So we're going to drop our anonymous survey into the chat box, and we're expecting to hear some stuff about today. It was fun. So our anonymous pulse survey. All right. We're also going to remind you that takeaway sheets for every day are loaded onto the website. We encourage your edits and additions. I want to remind you, if you have not already, to sign up for our lunchtime sign-up sheet to do one of the lunchtime talks to join us in asking questions. Never a dull moment, that thing where your phone rings and your headset jumps to your phone. That was my physical therapist calling, because that's important right now. So please sign up for to ask questions at our lunchtime Q&A this week. We have one more tomorrow and a few more next week. We'll be releasing Q&A for our speakers very soon. So please make sure you sign up for at least one Q&A with our lunchtime speakers. We'll get you our guest speakers soon. And we'll also have office hours with our guest speakers next week. So get excited about that. We'll also tell you about the SICSS Festival tomorrow. I want to end by thanking our TAs for the day: Nadia, Nancy, Aaron, Peter, Emma, Hiwate, Hansi, and Matt, Matt joined us for the first time today. Special guests Calvin Handley and April Chang. And of course, our incredible event staff, Amanda and Amber. And also thank you all to all of you for staying with us again today. Today was a slightly heavier list. I'm getting tired. I don't know about you, it's Thursday. So we got one more day that we get a break, all right? So I can't wait to look for everybody. We might need to turn up a little bit tomorrow. It's almost Juneteenth. So I am warning you, tomorrow might be a little bit more fun than today. I'm gonna have more caffeine. That's all I can promise. Everyone have a great afternoon. If you're signed up to do 90 seconds, not 90 years, 90 seconds of fame, I think we're all set up for 90 years of fame here, you know, that glorious purpose. Please head to that room. I will end with a quote from RuPaul, the philosopher. This is my daily mantra, sometimes minute by minute, not just daily, which is to love yourself. Learn to love yourself and stay in this moment. This moment right here is where your power is. So don't be looking ahead, what you haven't done yet, what you didn't do yesterday. Be in this moment, enjoy your night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, beautiful Black people. Love you, love you, love you. See you tomorrow. Thank you all for watching. For more information on SICSS-Howard Mathematica, visit our website, follow us on social media, and join our email list.